Hi folks, Rod Genders from Genders and Partners Solicitors here. We are the oldest law firm in South Australia, established in 1848, and we specialise only in trusts, wills and estates. Now today I'm introducing an ebook that we've written entitled What to Do When Somebody Dies in South Australia. And this is packed with a lot of information, and it'll be very helpful for those of you who are just starting out when you're having to explore what to do when somebody close to you has died. You might not know what to do, you might be named as an executor, you might just want to know what needs to happen or what's going to happen. So this ebook, free, contains a lot of helpful information. I'll race through very briefly what's in here. There's a lot packed in here, so we haven't got time in this short little introduction video to go through everything, but I encourage you to go to our website where you'll be able to sign up to receive this ebook for free. So we talk about what happens if somebody dies at home, and we also talk about later on what happens when somebody dies in hospital. Now, when somebody dies, there are in fact different certificates of death. Typically, a doctor will fill in a certificate of death. Then there is an official government death certificate. That's the one that you really need for the administration of a deceased estate. You need it for probate and so on. And then there can be other certificates to do with burial, cremation and so on. Question that sometimes arises is who owns a dead body, and the answer is that nobody owns it, but that the executor named in the last will and testament typically has the right and obligation to make the funeral arrangements and to deal with the dead body. Dealing with a funeral director can sometimes be a bit confusing, and we have a chapter on that in the book. And we talk about what happens if a person dies in hospital, what then has to happen with the body, can organs be donated, and so on. We have information about whom to notify about the death and the funeral, who to contact, what to do with the deceased's social media accounts and so on. How do you cover immediate expenses, particularly if you're financially dependent upon the deceased person? Bills keep coming in. What about insurances? Do they have to be kept up to date, and so on? What happens if they're on a pension or some sort of social services benefit? What do you say to Centrelink? How do you deal with the DVA? All that's covered. There's a particular chapter about the official government death certificate, why you need it, what you have to do to get it. We also talk about the various documents that an executor needs to locate on behalf of the deceased estate, and obviously number one is the will, and that's not necessarily as straightforward as you might like to believe, because lost wills are a thing, unfortunately, and that's something that we cover. Locating insurance policies, finding out if they're up to date, who the benefits are payable to, that's all covered. Public trustee sometimes needs to be notified. We talk about that. We explain what probate is, whether it's likely to be required. It isn't actually required in every estate, but it is always required if there's real estate or shares or any individual asset worth more than about $10,000, and also in some other circumstances. And there's a distinction between probate and letters of administration. Most people are unaware that there are actually 5 different types of administration of a deceased estate in South Australia, and people throw around the term probate, but they often don't really understand which type of probate that they are referring to. We talk about what happens with jointly owned property. For example, real estate could be owned joint tenants, but it could also be owned as tenants in common. Very, very different legal effects and consequences of those 2 different registrations. We talk about that, and we talk about what could happen in very small estates with informal administration. We obviously touch on how to apply for probate and why trying to do that yourself is generally a very bad idea. We explain what leave reserved means, which very briefly means if you have more than one person named as an executor, not all of them necessarily needs to join in the application for the grant of probate. They need to be notified, but in certain circumstances they may choose not to join in the grant, and that can be accommodated. What documents are required and how much the government charges in South Australia for the court application is all covered. We have a chapter on superannuation death benefits. Big subject, not at all well understood by most Australians, including unfortunately most lawyers, and we canvass that a bit in the will. Once you've gotten probate, we talk about how to distribute assets. We talk about managing any ongoing testamentary trusts. So, for example, if a deceased person left money to their young child in their will, that money may have to be held for them in trust until the child is old enough to maturely and responsibly handle it for themselves. We talk a little bit about doing the final tax return for the deceased person. We have to, of course, have a little mention of what might happen if somebody contests or challenges, and there's a distinction between challenging a will and challenging an estate. Most people talk about contesting a will when in fact they're really talking about making a claim for greater provision out of the estate. Two different types of claim, and we talk about those. So if you need assistance beyond what's in this small introductory book, then please contact us. If the estate is in South Australia, we would be delighted to assist. We specialise only in trusts, wills and estates, and we've been doing it for a long time. I personally have been doing this work for over 35 years, and we specialise in this area, and we would be delighted to assist you and your family.